people, so today I felt like having a bit of a rant. I'm going to talk about unpopular Harry Potter opinions. Now these aren't just any random unpopular opinions that I found on the internet. These are opinions that I truly have, that I truly believe in, if that's the right word. But yeah, I just thought this would be a bit of fun. Let's complain about Harry Potter instead of praising it all the time for once. If that sounds good to you, then keep on watching. Leave a like if you enjoy the video, because that means a lot to me. And if you're new to my channel, then don't forget to subscribe to join my little magical corner. Okay, so I have a list of unpopular opinions about Harry Potter that I have. I am quite aware that a lot of other people also share these opinions. It just so happens that I share them as well. Okay, so the first one, a very popular opinion to have in the wizarding world, especially when it comes to relationships within the series. I think that Hermione and Draco should have ended up together, or at least they will be. So I think one of the only reasons Ron and Hermione end up being a couple within the series is because of the events that take place. So like all of the Wizarding World stuff, the whole Voldemort stuff, the chasing after Horcruxes, you know, everything that the Golden Trio went through and Ron and Hermione went through. I think it's those events that kind of brought them together, or at least contributed to it. So I think that if none of that happened, if Voldemort didn't exist and Harry just lived his life being a normal kid, he still may have been friends with Ron and Hermione, but that doesn't necessarily mean that any of them would end up with each other. So yeah, maybe Hermione and Harry might end up together. But yeah, I think there should have been at least more inter-house relationships, friendships within the series, and one of them could very well have been Hermione and Draco. So yeah, if we're going to go on with the canon story, Ron and Hermione get married. I'm going to mention the only other piece of literature, it's not literature, the only other story we have post original series that some people call canon, others think it's a little rubbish, but I'm just going to go by The Cursed Child for a moment here, because even though I have my own thoughts about The Cursed Child, I don't like The Cursed Child, I don't see it as canon, but there are some parts of The Cursed Child that I like, that I think would actually be a thing, and I will discuss more of these things throughout this video. But one of the things I kind of picked up on was Ron and Hermione's relationship. Like, I kind of feel like, and I don't know, I kind of got this vibe from the epilogue in Deathly Hallows anyway, that there wasn't so much love there anymore. I just get the feeling that Hermione is going to fall out of love with Ron, that she's just going to end up not wanting to be with him anymore, and they end up separating, maybe getting a divorce. And here's Draco, he's a family friend, you know, I think that happens. He's going to be a friend of the Potters and the Weasleys or whatever, maybe not a close friend, but he's going to be there, he's going to be pottering about. But yeah, they're friends, and they eventually, after a bit of time, they end up getting together. I like that, I see that as happening. That's my opinion on the whole Hermione Ron, Hermione Draco, who's she better off with? I don't know. But yeah, I think she should have been with Draco. My second unpopular opinion, which actually admittedly is probably a very popular opinion, something that I know a lot of people don't agree with that happened within the series, is what Harry and Ginny, or should I say Harry, because he definitely had the most input in this, what Harry named his middle child. Albus Severus Potter. You were named after two headmasters of Hogwarts. One of them was a Slytherin and was perhaps the greatest man I ever knew. I can't remember word from word how the quote goes, but yeah, basically that's what he tells Albus. There's no denying that Severus was a very brave man, yes, can guarantee that. Albus, brave, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Were they really like the most important characters in Harry's life? Did they mean the most to Harry? Did he believe in them and like them, and was he on both of their sides? Was he committed and loyal to both of these characters throughout the entirety of the series? No, especially Snape, but there was actually a moment within Deathly Hallows when he wasn't really liking Albus Dumbledore all that much, and I can't blame him. More on that later, but you'd think a lot of people name their children after like father figures, role models in their lives, right? Albus Severus. There are 3 other characters that were better role models and better father figures for Harry than Albus ever was, and definitely people Harry should have named his children after. Rubeus Hagrid, Remus Lupin, and even Arthur Weasley. They were always there for Harry whenever he needed them. He could always rely on them. Why didn't he name his children after any of them? And especially Arthur, right? Because then at least Ginny might have had some say in what the kids were named after, because it just seems like Harry would just put his foot down on all of them. Like James and Lily you can understand because they're his parents' names, but maybe one of them could have been up to Ginny, you know? I really, really hate the fact that Harry named his child after Albus Severus. There are so many other characters out there who would have been much better namesakes. And anyway, having a kid called Albus Severus going to Hogwarts, right, named after 2 famous headmasters, Albus especially, and the other man being such a controversial character, even within the wizarding world, I think people would be debating for years and years as to whether or not Severus Snape was actually on the good side or the bad side. We're doing it as Harry Potter fans, but I'm pretty sure they'll be doing it in the wizarding world as well. So yeah, I think that would have sparked much controversy when it came out. That's what he named his children. Speaking of one of these Speaking of one of these namesakes, Severus Snape, not the hero or the good guy he was made out to be. So throughout the entire Harry Potter series, until Snape's memory, Harry hated Snape, and his hatred for Snape only grew throughout the years. He had reason upon reason as to why he hated Snape, and okay, so some of these reasons were justified in the end, like him killing Albus, that was all planned, fine, but him being a bully, the way he treated Harry just because he was James Potter's son, the way he treated Neville for absolutely no reason at all. He was a bully to other school students as well. Neville wasn't the only one afraid of him, I'm sure, and okay, so he may have been a great teacher. He knew his potions knowledge and his defence against dark arts knowledge. It doesn't mean he's a good teacher, because he wasn't a good teacher at all. He was a complete arsehole. I'm sorry, but he was. And the whole reason Harry ended up completely forgiving Snape and redeeming his whole character, changing his whole opinion on how he felt about him, was because he was in love with his mother. And I'm not even convinced it was love. It was more infatuation and borderline obsession. So, okay, Lily was one of the only people there for Snape. She was the only one truly nice to him, who wanted to be his friend and all this stuff. But he still chose to hang around with his Slytherin friends, even though Lily didn't want him to. And contrary to popular belief, okay, so Lily may have chose James over Snape, but Snape chose the dark side over Lily before that. So the only reason he turned to the good side was because Voldemort killed Lily. There was no other reason, and I don't think that is a good enough justifiable reason to change allegiance and to completely forgive and redeem a character. Let's talk about the other namesake now, Albus Dumbledore. He wasn't all that great either. He wasn't a great brother to either Aberforth or Ariana. He didn't want to sit at home looking after a sister, and okay, you can understand that because he was a very brilliant man. He had all these plans, you know, he's probably going to be Ministry of Magic before what happened. He fell in love with the wrong guy and he knew his mistake eventually, so you know, that's fine. And he eventually wanted obviously to defeat Voldemort, and he was helping Harry to defeat Voldemort. He was giving him all this information and helping him and telling him all he needed to know. No, he didn't. There were so many things that he failed to tell Harry, that he chose not to tell Harry, I think, which made Harry's journey into defeating the Horcruxes and ultimately defeating Voldemort a lot more difficult. So there were some things that he didn't tell Harry which were justifiable, which, yes, Harry only needed to know at the right time. So Harry being a Horcrux and the whole Deathly Hallows thing. Yeah, I get it. He needed to find out in the way that he did, so that was all fine. But there were other things that he could have told Harry that he just didn't, and for that, and for so many other reasons, you know, all the stuff that we find out about Dumbledore in like the Fantastic Beasts series or in the Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore. Yeah, he's not a great guy. He's not a great guy. So if you watched my last video where I was talking about the Hufflepuff edition of the Prison of Azkaban books, I said some people see Prison of Azkaban as one of their favourite books, other people it's one of their least favourite books. And I said you'll find out in my next video how I feel about it. Yeah, you're gonna find out how I feel about The Prisoner of Azkaban. So this is more of a recent change in opinion for me, because I did always love The Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, the unpopular opinion is that The Prisoner of Azkaban is one of the least best books. Come at me. Okay, so this, by the way, is nothing to do with the film adaptation. I really love the film adaptation. It's probably one of the best film adaptations, even though it's done very differently to the rest of them and it just stands out so much. I'm talking about the story itself, the canon story. So yeah, my main issue, obviously, is time travel. Hermione, a 13-year-old girl, wants to do more subjects than she is physically able to do in the time that she has. So she is gifted a very powerful, dangerous object so that she could take more classes. The clue is in the description. Powerful and dangerous, given to a teenage girl. Time travel being in any story, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like the whole paradox thing and just messing with time, going back in time, going forward in time. I don't like it. I don't understand time travel enough to enjoy reading about it in books. I think J.K. Rowling shared that view as well, which is why time travel is not used in any other canon Harry Potter story. It is obviously the biggest reason why I hate the Cursed Child. There are other ways they could have rescued Sirius, you know, things could have happened slightly differently so that Sirius could still have escaped. Maybe ultimately Buckbeak would have died, and although that would have been heartbreaking, he's not such a useful, important character to keep alive. They could have just got any other hippogriff for Sirius to ride on, or they could have just given him a broomstick or whatever to fly away on. It didn't have to be Buckbeak, so yeah, Buckbeak should have died. They could have found other ways for Sirius to escape, all this stuff, so yeah. This is why Prisoner of Azkaban is one of my least favourite books. The next one I think is shared by a lot of people and is also like some sort of theory going on out there, which is that Ron should have been a Hufflepuff, Hermione should have been a Ravenclaw. We'll get to Harry later on. But yeah, Ron has more Hufflepuff traits than Gryffindor, and Hermione has more Ravenclaw traits than Gryffindor, and it is heavily assumed and very believable that both characters chose to be in Gryffindor. And this is another part of this unpopular opinion for me. I don't think you should be able to choose what house you want to be in. Say, for example, you are like the complete opposite to Gryffindor, right? But you want to be in Gryffindor because your best friend is. Does that make you suddenly become the kind of person that Gryffindor house should be represented by? You know, just an example. Apologies for the sudden light change, but it kind of suddenly got really dark outside, so I just put the main light on as well as my ring light. So yeah, basically, I don't think you should be able to choose. Ron should have been Hufflepuff, Hermione should have been a Ravenclaw. They could have still been friends just because they're in different houses. It doesn't mean that people in different houses can't be like best friends. I don't like the whole persona of Gryffindor being the best house just because the three main characters are in it. I think it would have been better if they were all in different houses, to be honest. You know, have a bit of representation of each of the houses. Speaking of which, Harry Potter should have been in Slytherin. Speaking about the whole canon story, the true canon story of Harry and how J.K. Rowling has made him out to be, he should be in Gryffindor. The only reason I think that the Hat wanted him to be in Slytherin was because of the part of Voldemort that was inside him, part of Voldemort's soul. But regardless of all that, of whether or not the Harry we know should have been in Gryffindor or in Slytherin, I think J.K. Rowling should have made it so that Harry was always meant to be in Slytherin. I think it would have made a much, much better story if right at the beginning the main good guy, the hero, was in Slytherin. And last but not least, quite a controversial one, but I'm going to say it anyway. The lack of LGBTQ+ representation within the original Harry Potter series isn't a big deal. There's been a lot of people are annoyed that there's not representation for the LGBTQ+ community. I just want to say right now I'm a straight person, but I do completely emphasise and I'm completely behind everyone who is part of that spectrum. If you want to call yourself gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, binary, asexual, whatever, I'm completely all for that. I'm up for learning more about it, understanding more about it, and you know, you do you, that's great, fine. So this isn't hatred towards the community, by the way, I just want to point that out. Think about the original Harry Potter series, right? Most of the series, bar a few chapters here and there, are in Harry Potter's point of view. A teenage boy who has most likely had absolutely no education or any awareness of such community being a thing. Maybe it would never have occurred to him that people could be gay or lesbian or bisexual, whatever. We got this story in Harry Potter's point of view, so maybe stuff like that was happening in Hogwarts and in the wizarding world in general, but it wasn't an interest to Harry. There were always other things going on, more important things going on, so he wouldn't have picked up on any of it. Also, Harry Potter, not a love story or a sexual story. Like, okay, there are some relationships going on in it, but that's not the main theme of the story. So the fact that people want LGBTQ plus content representation in it, well, I'm sorry, but you can't have your own way. You can't have representation like that in everything. So yeah, the fact that you have lack of representation, you're hearing the story through the mind and the eyes of a teenage boy. A teenage boy who we assume, through him having gone out with Cho and marrying Ginny, a straight guy. A lot of people were also annoyed that J.K. Rowling only mentioned that Dumbledore was gay after the series. Well, again, how is that supposed to be represented within the original story? You know, is Dumbledore just going to be sitting down with Harry one day when they're having these Voldemort Horcrux hunting meetings where Dumbledore's just going to be like, oh, by the way, Harry, I just thought I'd randomly tell you for no reason at all, I happen to be gay. It's not going to come up, is it? The only slight indication we have is in Deathly Hallows, in the book The Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore, where it is insinuated he was close friends with Grindelwald. Could it have been more than friendship? Well, yeah, because that is the only time you're going to have things like that. But you're probably going to see much more representation in the Fantastic Beasts series because Dumbledore and Grindelwald being in love with each other, or at least Dumbledore is in love with Grindelwald, that is a plot thing that is relevant to the series. So you're probably going to have more of that than what we had in Crimes of Grindelwald. Yeah, there you go. Happy? Good. Great. By the way though, I do think that there are other characters that are within the spectrum. So like Charlie Weasley, for example, could be asexual, you know, having no sexual desires for anyone else whatsoever because he's just so in love with his dragons. Maybe he is actually in love with dragons. Maybe it goes that creepy. And again, referencing the cursed child, although I don't really like to. Scorpius and the bad namesake kid Albus Severus Potter, they're really close friends, and it's so heavily hinted within the cursed child story, play, whatever, that they could eventually become more than friends. And you know what? I am completely all for that. I ship Scorpius and Albus, so yeah. Bring it on. So there you go, they are some of my unpopular Harry Potter opinions. Please let me know down in the comments what you thought, if you agree with any of these opinions, if you disagree, if you've got any of your own unpopular or even popular Harry Potter opinions that may be controversial. Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then please don't forget to leave a like, because that would mean a lot to me. If you're new to my channel and you haven't already, then why not subscribe to join my little magical corner? I make videos every single week, so come subscribe to join the fun. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.